Namaste and welcome to this episode of the Festival of Bharat with me, Pujata Krishna. I have with me today Ranjith Radhakrishnan ji, who is a Bengaluru-based entrepreneur, and he has also written a very interesting book which has been released recently on Parasurama, one of the avatars of Vishnu, and of whom very little is known in general. And the title of this book is Rama of the Axe, a very, very interesting name or title. Ranjit ji has had an interesting career. Besides being an author, he has been an assistant director, scriptwriter, actor, toll manager, among other things. Namaste Ranjit ji and welcome to our show.
Namaste Pujita ji. Thank you for having me on your show. And very good evening to the viewers.
So, this book sounds very interesting, and I have read parts of it, thanks to you. And I found it very engaging. Honestly, it was very, very well written, very lucid. Let me start by asking you what drove you to choose Parashuram as a subject or a topic for your book?
Okay. See, I had no intentions whatsoever to becoming an author. That was the furthest thing from my mind. I did write. I mean, from my school days, I've been writing off and on. I didn't think any of that was publish worthy till when the lockdown happened, and there was this call from Indic Academy for short stories on particular characters during the 18 days of the Mahabharata war. So I picked Shakuni because I thought nobody would pick him. And, less competition that way. I'll just put in something about Shakuni. And there's this particular incident on the 11th day of the war where he actually defeats Sahadeva, who eventually kills him on the 18th day. So I picked that up and I wrote something and I showed it to my mom and she said, "This is very good." And I just left it there. I didn't do anything with it. I think it was 2 days before the last date that she came and asked me, "Did you submit it?" I said, "No." I said, "What the hell are you doing? Go do that." So I sent it across and I promptly forgot about it till I got the email saying that, "No, you've been selected," and all that stuff. So we went through the workshop
Nice.
with the Himalayan writers retreat and all that stuff. And that's when this urge to, write something and this idea popped up in my head that I need to write something, go for a novel. I'm already part of 2 other anthologies with Indic Academy. So this process of writing was continuous. But I actually did not think about why I chose to write Parashurama till I was maybe 7 or 8 chapters into the book. And then I thought back as to, when did this connection come about? And I remember that between 1999 to maybe 2003, 2004, there were a series of deaths in my family. I started with my dad in 1999. And so every 5, 6 months, I was going to this temple on the outskirts of Trivandrum to do the last rites, either the 13th day rite or the annual rite that we do after 1 year. And I'd stayed in Trivandrum for a couple of years. I've been to all the major temples, Ananta Padmanabha Swami, Srikanteshwaram, Atukal Devi, the Ganesha temple, Parangadi. I never went to this temple. So I kept going back and I realized that I know hardly anything about the 6th avatar. I know the bare bones of the story. I know that, he had killed his mother on the orders of his father. I had no idea why he did it. So I started reading about it. And the more I read, sometimes when you read these stories, usually what people do is they come to a point and say, okay, he murdered his mother just because his father asked him to. This is unbelievable. This is.
And then they call it patriarchal from
Yeah. And then they say, no, this is a whole lot of, we can't even believe all this. I mean, how can this man be an avatar? See, that's where your imagination, your mind, that hook is what, that's where you need to be to find out, how do you write this story? So that didn't leave me at all. And as I was looking through this, trying to find out more about Parashuram, the character of his mother and his father was so brilliant, was so strong, that actually the Rama of the Axe is not a story of just Parashuram. It's about 4 people. The protagonist, that is Parashurama, the antagonist, that is Kartavirya Arjuna, Jambadagni, and Renuka. So
Sorry, Renuka,
the
mother.
mother and Jambadagni, the Saptarishi, that's his father. So while I was researching this, I found out that Renukamba is a Kuldevi to a lot of people in North Karnataka and South Maharashtra. yeah, and maybe the origins.
Even in Telangana,
Yeah,
there are many temples dedicated to Renuka.
Renuka. Yeah, the origin story may change a little bit, but it's almost the same deity that they're worshipping down south in Tamil Nadu as Mariamman and all that. So she's popularly known as Yellama in Karnataka. And it's when I heard that some sort of click went off in my mind, and I said, okay, now I have the basis of a story. The basic plot line was from the Brahmanda Purana. I had a Malayalam version of it, so I referred to that. But what my attempt in this story was to try and understand why he did it. Obeying one's dad when you don't know what is going to happen after the execution is, you had to bring some kind of reasoning to it. And I did not want to rationalize the story. I didn't want to make him a human who came to be regarded as God. See, when I'm as a reader, when I'm reading a book, it's like I'm buying a ticket to a movie. I'm not going in to criticize, find faults, nitpick. I'm going there to be entertained. I want you to do that. I'm like a kid at a magic show. I want you to misdirect me. I want you to the trick to be successful. I may have seen the same trick before, but I want you to see how you do it. you know I may have seen, somebody may have explained the trick to me, but I want to see what is the misdirection you bring about. So I'm willing to jump through all the hoops the author lays out for me. But unfortunately, there's one hoop I can't jump through, and that is when you tell me at the end of it that this was a great man, and over time he became God. People considered him God. If you look at it that way, then everybody wants to go to Kashi. Everybody wants to have a dip in the Ganga. And you have a man who's supposed to have brought her down from the heavens. He's neither an avatar. We don't have a temple for him. Bhagirath is, people may have heard of him. That's it. So such a great man is not considered a god now. So there is an exception to that. So I had to bring divinity and supernatural, what people call supernatural, into the story to explain, how Parashurama became an avatar. So that was my entire focus on that. And when I knew that, Renukamba was such an important, powerful deity connected to the Mahavidyas, the story just clicked in place. And I was also not satisfied with the usual definition given to a Brahma Kshatriya, that is somebody who's a Brahmin and a Kshatriya. If that was the explanation, you can have a whole lot of Brahma Kshatriya. Sri Krishna can be a Brahma Kshatriya himself.
Yes.
So you can call Arjuna also a Brahma Kshatriya. Because a lot of these Divyastras that they use is the potency behind it is their spiritual power. And that is
True.
not going to come without tapasya and all.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So there had to be some other meaning to it. So this came about as I was writing the book, and I'm not trying to make it mystical or anything of the sort, but it just took on a life of its own when I was writing. And I'm so glad that whatever Devi chose me to write this story, he's the man who's created the Konkan coast, my state, Kerala. So I'm happy that,
That's right, because Kerala is known to be Parashuram's bhumi, like Konkan, parts of some parts of Karnataka and Kerala. Am I right that that's where he's believed to have finally retired for his tapas, for his after he vanquishes the Kshatriyas? Am I right in my
almost. It's all the way from
yeah
Kanyakumari to Goa, the entire
to
stretch.
Goa?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. So he's
yes,
supposed to have appraised that land and brought it out from the
yes.
sea, and
See,
yeah,
correct.
and he's immortal. So he's in Dhyana somewhere. We don't know where. Everybody says it's Mount Mahendra, and there are different locations.
They believe that he's still
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So and he's one avatar who's met the subsequent ones, except
Yes.
except we have no detail about the ninth. And this was such an intriguing character for me because you have hymns in the Rig Veda that are attributed to him. So he's now an avatar of Mahavishnu. He's one of the biggest devotees of Mahadeva, not Ravana. I want to disagree there. Uh, okay, so it's not
Yes.
Ravana. It should be Parashurama up there. Yeah, and he's also got a text that is one of the most important texts in the tantric path. That
Attributed to him as an author?
Parashurama Kalpasutra. Okay, and there is a text which is a conversation between him and Guru Dattatreya, who's an Avaduta. Okay,
Yes,
that's called Tripura Rahasya. So it's like he's everywhere, and we don't know much about him.
that's
Yeah,
true.
you find folk tales about him in Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal, down south, Gujarat. It's like the length and breadth of the country.
If you were to take an educated guess, why do you think that is? Why do you think that he's not worshipped as much as he should be?
See, there are two popular misconceptions. I think,
I was,
yeah, one is that he's a very angry guy, and that's all he was about. He was here to just kill the Kshatriyas, and then somehow with this, modern narrative coming in about the caste and all this stuff, maybe because he is
yes,
a Brahmin, and then you don't want. Now we will not talk about them right now. I mean, he is an avatar. There is a reason why the supreme uh, divinity chose, to manifest in a Brahmin.
in a
Yeah,
yes.
so you can't go around questioning God for that. So I think it's just because of that, and we don't have a Parashurama. Yeah.
Yes,
So
correct.
so there are bits and pieces of him all across, which I don't think anybody's put together so far. Hopefully, I mean, I hear that we have around 4 million manuscripts lying in the National Manuscripts Mission. Maybe there's something there that will throw new light on him. I am hopeful. In the meantime, you'll just have to read my book. I'm sorry.
Well, at least we have
Yes.
that. And is it true that Parasurama is also believed to have been the preceptor of Kalaripayattu,
Yes.
right?
There are two schools of Kalaripayattu. The northern school, which has more to do with weapons and armed combat, that is the school of Parashurama. And unarmed combat, the southern school is from Agastya.
Right.
So,
So,
yeah, these two do meet, and that's in part two of the book. It's not in part one as yet.
okay, I will not talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. But I do want to talk a little bit about the title because it's very interesting. You call him Rama of the
Yeah.
Axe. So it's almost as if immediately in people's minds there is the juxtaposition of Rama of the
Yes.
bow,
Yeah.
right, as a subsequent avatar. So how do you see that? I mean, why did you choose it? Was it a deliberate choice? What was it that you were thinking? Yeah, when you
Okay.
chose to
I need
call
to
it
know if
Rama.
you're moonlighting as a publisher too, because because when I approached my publisher, I had told them that I have these series of stories in mind, and the order was this: Rama of the axe, that's Parashurama; Rama of the bow, that is Ramachandra;
Oh,
and
okay.
Rama of the plow, that is Ram.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right,
So
right.
yeah,
Wow.
because he's connected to both the avatars. So I
Absolutely.
wanted to do something like that. So I had this title fixed for him, because I wanted to do that series. I don't know if that's possible, but I mean that was the intention. Uh,
That was the,
and it also it sounded a little unique to me because I don't know of anybody else that Mahadev has given a parachute to. And if you look at it, that's a very odd choice of a weapon. It's not a bow and arrow. It's not a divyastra that he's given him. He's given him an
yes,
axe.
true.
So there has to be a reason to that. And it can't be an ordinary axe. It has to have something more to it, which is what I've tried to explain in the story. And I've
No.
yeah, and I've tried to connect it to the tantra path also through that.
Yes, I noticed that when I was reading
Yeah.
some parts of your book. And so you did mention that there are some misconceptions about Parshuram in people's minds. One was you mentioned that everybody perceives him to be this very angry guy, right? So there's immediately a kind of distancing because you always, when you think of a godly figure, you only think of someone who's benign and someone who's unfortunately that has become the stereotype in people's minds. What are the other misconceptions that you think or you've encountered that people have when with regards to Parashuram?
Okay. See, actually, the misconceptions are all across the board. We have modern myth making happening. We have Karna being wanted as some kind of a wrongful. He's actually the hero, but he was wronged by everybody across the board.
Wrong, like the unsung
Yeah,
hero.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's so much of sympathy for him. Probably because we have lost contact with the original texts and we are not reading them, and we are, more enamored by the popular stuff that comes out on TV and movies.
Yes.
And this has been going on for a very long time. You remember the Sivaji Ganeshan movie that happened maybe in the 70s or something, or 60s, Karnan, and we had Bhasa writing novel on Karna.
On
Yeah,
Karna,
I think
yes.
it's called Karna.
I forget the name. Karnabharan.
Karnabharam.
Karnabharanam?
Yeah, Karnabharam. It's supposed to. Yeah,
Karnabharam, yes.
yeah.
Karnabharam,
This,
yes.
I mean, I think Mohanlal did a stage play based on that. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe around 8 or 9 years back. So this has been ongoing. There's nothing wrong with that. But my when I started writing this book, my aim was, I don't want to touch the integrity of the character. There is somebody who's laid out what the character is before, and we have to try and understand that rather than try and warp the character into something that we understand today. So I don't think there would be truth in the story I'm telling unless I got the characters. So when I looked at it as a very angry person who was, there's a story that comes later on that he was defeated by Sri Rama, and I'm just writing that. So I'm relooking that as whether it was really a defeat or whether there was something that was being handed over. There was, taking of charge and a relinquishing of charge that's happening there. Uh, so this angry thing didn't bother me too much in the beginning, because the more I read about him, I knew there was so much depth in this character. You can't have a conversation with somebody like Guru Dattatreya and have a book like Tripura Rahasya if you're just angry.
True.
Yeah, you're not going to win this much. You're not going to be an avatar. You're not going to be, uh, you know, winning this much acclaim. Not having a Vedic hymn attributed to you if you're just angry and you there, just looking. There's just
Yeah.
bloodlust and there's just killing.
Yeah, I just want to kill people
Yeah, yeah.
indiscriminately.
So that's just a caricature. Unfortunately, I want to bust that caricature here, and I want people to know that it's not just him. His mother's story is equally important because she plays a huge part. I think even today in either Uttarakhand or Himachal, there is a particular Ekadashi on which Parashurama's coming to meet his mother is still celebrated. So they have a temple of Parashurama and they carry him on a palanquin down to a lake, which is where Renuka is supposed to have given up her life. So that is
Mhm.
celebrated on a particular Ekadashi. I think if you have to understand Parashurama, you got to understand Renuka first, and then you got to understand Jamadatma. So without doing that, I don't think you're going to get, really get,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. True. What kind of research did you have to? I mean, I'm sure it must have been humongous amount of reading and researching. So could you walk us through that? Like what all, where do you access your material
Yeah.
from? And
Uh, so I started off with the Brahmanda Purana. And since this was in Malayalam, it was good because I started reading in my language again. And it was tough reading because the words, I mean, you had two words in an entire line. It was so heavily Sanskritized, but it was good going through that exercise because it sort of got me into the story. There's a lot of mythological tales which don't find a place in the Puranas. And that's sort of helped me mold, get a fuller perspective of the character because Yellama's story does not appear in the Brahmanda Purana. Uh,
okay.
Different Puranas give different names to his brothers. I stuck with this because I thought, rather than getting confused and picking from various other sources, just let's stick to one Purana and go ahead with this. And since I'm from Kerala, I've heard a lot of stories about Parasurama. I know that, Vadakunathan temple, that was the founder is supposed to be Parashurama. So he's got 108 Mahadeva temples and 108 Devi temples that are supposed to have. Legend has it that he's the one who created them. And most of them are very famous in Kerala. And we also have the Naga shrines, the sacred groves, when he brought the Nagas to Kerala to, get rid of the poison in the land, to get raised it from the sea. I knew all these stories. I knew, This axe thing was, there's a funny story attached to it, because there was this old matinee idol in Kerala called Prem Nasir, and
A, a, an
actor,
actor.
yeah. He was like, I think he still holds a record for the maximum number of movies as a hero. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What's his name again?
Prem Nazir.
Yeah, yeah, Prem Nazir.
Yeah.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
heard of him.
So it seems somebody asked him, you're the biggest star in Kerala and you get paid so little. Tamil
Hmm.
guys and Telugu guys, they take home so much money. He said, what can I do?
True.
I mean, when Parasurama threw his axe, he should have thrown it a little further. We would have had a bigger state and more population. you know. So, so he's been in conversation, especially if you're from that part of Tamil.
Yes.
Uh, Unfortunately, not much is known, you know, outside.
Hmm.
You may have localized stories about him. So I'm trying to bring it all together and tell him that there was an avatar like this that deserves your attention.
Hmm.
It's not somebody who just came and went, killed somebody, and then still there. He's got a very important part to play with the 10th avatar that's coming. So it's good.
And so, apart from Brahmanda Purana, any other like any other text that you went through, or is there any? Because I just want to know what material is out there on Parashuram aside from this Purana.
See, there's a lot of stuff on the net, especially once I got the connection with Yelama. There are a lot of stories attached to it. There are different versions of the same story. There's an exchange of heads that happens in another version of the same story. So the moment you go there, then you get Agastya and Lopamudra coming in, which is
Right.
another story, which takes you down
Another.
south to the Siddhars and everything that happens in Tamil Nadu. So, and once I looked at the beheading, every story I looked at, I was finding only beheadings there. Suddenly it became Rahu Ketu is a beheading.
Hmm.
Ganesha is a beheading, and yeah,
Beheading.
Ganesha has a connection with Parasurama too in the Tantra. Yeah.
Interesting.
Then you had that barbaric story, the Katu Shamji temple in Rajasthan.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's a
True.
beheading. The oldest festival in Bangalore is the Karaga festival, where they have a head mounted on a kalasha.
Hmm.
That's was associated with Draupadi and all this stuff. You had Iravan
Right.
story. So a whole lot of stuff like this came out, and I said, this is we call this man an angry guy, and just look at the number of stuff that's happening.
Look at the number of here.
Yeah, and nobody's
He's not
called
the only
angry
one.
except him. So
Except
except him.
true.
So basically, it was Brahmanda Puran and a lot of research on the net about uh, Renuka,
Yeah, Yellama
yeah, and
and yeah.
Jamadagni, and a bit of reference into the Vedas to see which are the hymns that are associated with him. Um, Basic plot line
Right.
is,
How did you go about the process? Because imagine having all this material, and then it's very difficult. I can imagine very difficult writing historical, or again, I use the word mythological for want of a better
okay.
word, mythological
Yeah.
fiction. Because so did you? Is it is part? So my question is, are parts of this book fictionalized, or is it all absolutely based on what you read? That's my question. Like, is there any part that is
Okay.
fictionalized?
A lot of it is fictionalized in the
Okay.
sense that I've taken the basic plot line from the Brahmanda Purana. This is what happened with his mother. Later on, okay, there is some tapasya that he does, and he gets this axe from the parashu from Mahadeva. And there is this incident that happened over Surabhi, the holy cow, in his father's hermitage. And there is this king who is his antagonist. Now I can retell the story keeping these points in mind in a completely different way. The only thing I didn't want to do is not disrespect the avatar. There's a stature that is associated with the avatar. I do not want to bring any kind of disrespect. I didn't want to lower him in anybody's eyes. So my interpretation of particular pivotal incidents in his life, I've tried to give it a new perspective. I've tried to explain why is it so important. And for example, the parashu that I was mentioning, why would Mahadeva give him a parachute? Why isn't it not another Divyastra? Why was a man given an axe to fight with an enemy that has 1,000 arms? cannot be killed. Who's protected by so many boons, who's a great spiritual master himself. There has to be something to that. Was there something? So I have tried to posit some of this, saying that this is how it may have happened, uh, which is why I brought in a little bit of song, a little bit of prophecy into it. We are a culture of songs. We have one for everything, almost every incident that happens in our life. Why don't we have it in our books? So I thought I could convey a lot of stuff, through the songs, through the prophecy that happened, and I wanted that prophecy to connect, Renuka, Parashurama, and Kartikeya, and turn it around in the climax and show you what it actually means. So that is the twist that will be.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, and I also like, I mean, I couldn't help noticing when I was reading your book, parts of it, that, I mean, the character of Renuka, for example, she's very strongly, she comes across as a very strong personality. Not at all as how one would imagine a rishi's wife to be. I mean, in popular imagination, this is not true, but in popular imagination, by most people, a rishi patni is usually a figure in the a shadowy figure in the who's lurking in the background. Don't doesn't really make a very strong doesn't have a strong presence. Um, did you find while you were doing your research that this was not the case, or was it you taking a spin on I mean, as an author and creating her to be a strong personality? That is one part of my question. And second, did you find any other such female or women characters who, while you were doing your research, uh, who come across as very strong personalities, not necessarily virtuous or quiet and demure, or like Kali. I mean, kind of like treading the middle
yeah,
path, but strong
yeah,
nevertheless.
yeah. Brilliant question. Because if you read the Puranic version of it, you find this happening to Renuka, and then after that, she sort of disappears from the story. But when you go to
Yes.
the folklore, she's such a magnificent figure that comes out there, and it's like, such a powerful goddess, and you can't help but being in awe. And especially when you talk about the 10 Mahavidyas, these are extremely fierce forms. Some of them are very soft, but there is no doubt that they are not to be trifled with. So it was during the writing of this book that I also wrote that poem. Because I wrote the songs and the prophecy in this, it gave me the confidence to write an entire narrative poem for this anthology called Arya. And through the course of writing this and discussing with the other authors, we, a little earlier we talked about how, since we are not connected with the primary text, with the primary stories, a lot of myth making has happened. I think the most obvious example would be Shakuntala, because everybody knows the Kalidasa story. How she was this
Yes.
weeping lady who went and
Who's
yeah.
abandoned?
The Shakuntala in Mahabharata is completely different. She takes,
Very
yeah, she
different.
takes a stand in court, but she challenges the king. But we don't know the story.
In fact, she asks him that she wants him to be the father of her
Yeah,
child. That's what it
yeah,
says. That she approaches Dushyant, very openly, and she says that she wants him to be the father of her
true.
child. Yes. So, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned this because I did a production on
Okay,
Shakuntala in 2019. I'm a dancer, so I did a production on Shakuntala in 19, and it was completely, in my interpretation, but kind of based on the fact that people tend to think that she's this rejected lady who's, but it's actually the Mahabharata version actually tells you a different
true,
tale
true.
altogether.
I look at the stories we have. Uh, on one hand, we have. I'm so sorry to be very, sort of stark about it. We have people who call themselves feminists writing about Draupadi, and then they tell you that she was secretly in love with Karna, which is unbelievable. You've
True.
just damaged the reputation and character of that lady. You just go on.
Exactly.
you could write Draupadi without doing that. You find no mention of Subhadra. She almost abducted Arjuna by herself. She was the one driving the chariot, right? Uh, we
Yes.
have Ulupi, who was a widow.
Ulupi.
Who was a widow. You know, they talk so much about how widows are treated in ancient India, and she was the one who went and proposed marriage to Arjuna.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yes, she
yeah.
approaches him.
We
Yes.
have Chitrangada, who took care of the kingdom, didn't join Arjuna after she married him and had a son. She opted to stay back in her place. We have somebody like that. The lady I wrote on, Shandilya Duhita, she's told by Narada that she can't attain to heaven despite her tapasya because she didn't get married. And, and she goes and looks for a groom when she's in such an advanced age, finds somebody, and her tapasya is
Could you mention the name of the character again?
okay. That's the interesting part because she's popularly known as Vruddha Kanya. So, Vruddha Kanya, the old maid.
Vrit, Acha, Vritta
Yeah,
Kanya.
yeah,
Okay. Vriddha
yeah.
Kanya. Oh.
So she comes and goes in a few verses in the Mahabharata.
And what's her name? Actual name?
Actual name nobody knows till now. She's known with a as Kuni Gargi because her father is Kuni Garga, and she is
Acha.
a child of his yogic creation. So while researching that character, I came across a research paper by this professor called Supriya Banikpal, based in Calcutta, and where she had said that her name should be Shandilya Duhita. Maybe it's with her Gotra. Yeah,
Shandilya.
Shandilya Duhita. Duhita means daughter. So Shandilya's,
Duhita. Yes,
yeah.
Duhita.
So Chandelia's daughter, probably it's a reference to her Gotra. Um, yeah.
Right.
So that's the name I used. And her
Hmm.
tapasya is so strong that she
Hmm.
spends just one day and one night with her husband. She
Hmm.
attains heaven, but she gives him half the power of her tapasya before she leaves. And that's enough to get him to heaven.
Wow.
So we've all heard of Nala and Damayanti, but this is a love story that we have not known. Um, yeah,
True.
and I when I started writing it, the first thing that came to my mind was how the old Kathakali performances used to happen. There used to be this big, huge lamp, and there was a curtain, and you would find these paint artists come in, and there would be another troupe singing. So I was thinking of something like that, somebody singing this poem and somebody enacting it. Uh, so, which is why I chose the poetic format to write that. If we look carefully enough, there are enough strong women characters here. If we can just throw those tag words that we use, patriarchy and empowerment, all this stuff, and actually look at the characters themselves, I think you're going to find your heroines right here, and they're no less than anybody else anywhere in the world.
True. Very, very true. What are the reactions that you've been getting from people? The ones who've read the book. What have you heard them say?
Okay, so this was a long time coming. Once a very close friend of mine, he doesn't permit me to say his name, but he was the one who got me in touch with Western. And once they approved the manuscript, uh, they were with Amazon then, and then suddenly Amazon shut them down, and Westland had to regroup. So this process has taken 2.5 years.
Right.
Okay, so it's during that process the other two anthologies happened, and this is not a humble brag or anything of the sort, but this is all Devi's Kripa. It couldn't have happened because of that. Because after such a long period of waiting for this book to come out, it came out. There was a pre-order period, and it came out on the 22nd of May. The first print run was over in 2 days. So and
Nice.
yeah, and Westland didn't tell me what number was till the 19th of May. They told me they were going with 10,000 copies. So the book went out. The first print was over in 2 days. We are in the second.
Wow.
Yeah, so we are in the second print now, and they were telling me that we will go into third print maybe another couple of weeks. So I'm really happy with that. I've got a lot of good feedback from Vivek Debraji, Gautam Chikarmaneji. They've actually put it up on Swarajya and Op India and all this stuff. And I'm very, very grateful. This is all thanks to Devi and Parashurama.
Sure. No, it is also your hard work. So there is some amount of personal endeavor and effort also, which is of course channeled. I mean, that comes through Devi Kripa or divine grace. So I agree. But to those who are watching, I'm going to be sharing the. We will share. Do you have a link to from where they can
Yes,
purchase the book? So we'll share that in the description. So please do go and buy the book, because, like Ranjit ji said, this is probably the only material that is available on Parashurama. I mean, aside from the Purana itself, but very little on Parashuram. So this would be an excellent way to get acquainted with the character of Parashuram. Um, and finally, Ranjit ji, what are you planning
okay.
next? Because I'm sure you are planning. Once an author, always an author, right?
Okay, so I'm writing part two because his story doesn't end with the demise of Kartavirarjuna. And I'd leave the viewers with a question: do you think Kartavirarjuna is really dead, or is something there? You'll find out in part two.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
the first part dealt with his struggle to becoming Parashurama and how he dealt with the antagonist in his life. Part two is how he carries on from there. It starts immediately after the war, immediately after the incidents of part one, and it takes you on his whole journey till he meets the two avatars and what happens in between. There are a whole lot of interesting characters he meets. There's this whole other stuff that not many people know about Parashurama that I need to bring in. For example, if I had to give you a simple teaser, there's this there's this mode of temple architecture you find in Kerala. It's called the Rurujit Vidhana. So they have
Sorry, what is it
it's called
called?
the Rurujit Vidhana. I
Okay.
I don't know much about this, but it has to do with specific deities being situated in specific direction at specific points in a temple, and you have the Saptamatrikas come in there. So, what is the connection? How did they come down? You have the Ashtamatrikas in Nepal, you have the Saptamatrikas down south. You have
Saptamatrikas, right?
so what is the connection? How is this man? Can you believe it? I don't know another character from our Puranas who has so much to do. You know, he's in temple architecture. He's writing tantra texts. He's got hymns in the
So he's connected with architecture. He's written. I mean, he's believed to have.
no, I mean he has told them this is the way the temple has to be constructed. This is how,
Oh.
and these are all Devi temples. These are all Bhadrakali. So why did this happen? How is
Mm.
this? And then there's the Sri Vidya angle to it. So so much more. I don't think.
So although it is he's a Shiv Bhakt, there is a lot of Devi aspect as
Yeah,
well.
surprising, and that's the whole
Interesting.
Avaduta angle, the Nath Sampradaya, all that comes in here. The Aghoris come in
Oh,
there, so it's like this is he's like an unseen guy who's everywhere, and yet we are not very perceptive of what he's
yet
doing.
we don't see
Yeah,
him.
we don't
Yeah.
see him straight. We have very few temples. All we know of him is this angry guy. And I think he's been very clever about it.
Yeah, it's like let them think that.
Yeah.
I'll go about my
Yes.
business.
Yes.
Right. Do you see this? Since you are from the film world, do you see this turning into a movie ever, like another, like like a Bahubali or something?
Okay, and I have to ask you a second question now. Do you moonlight as a mind reader or something of the sort? Because
You never know.
there,
I just connect the dots.
okay, no, there have been inquiries. Nothing finalized as yet. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
Okay.
I'm just more than the commercial aspect. I'm just looking at somebody who can do justice to this. I do
Right.
not want to have like there was a recent movie recently. I don't want that kind of blunder. Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Right. Right. No, I'm sure. I'm sure that uh, since you've written a book, and I've read the parts of the book, so it's beautifully written. I'm sure you'll have the aesthetics to make something sensible out
yeah,
of it.
hopefully.
um, so anyway, good luck to you on
Thank
that,
you.
and I'm sure that it'll look beautiful visual on visually, it's going to be fantastic if it comes through. So
Thank you so much.
we wish you all the very best on that.
Thank you so much.
So Ranjit ji, we'll close here, and I'm sure we'll have you back with us again with your second book
Sure.
when you have your second book
Sure.
out. And until then, our best wishes are with you, and thank you so much for joining in
Thank
today.
you so much. Thank you for having me here, Pujita ji. Wonderful talking to you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Those who are watching, please, if you haven't subscribed already, you should subscribe to our channel. Spread the word, like, comment, share, and do read Ranjith Radhakrishnan ji's book, Rama of the Axe. I will be sharing the link to the book, the details in the description. So please do that, and please come back for more content. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.